Paul, how you doing? You're very welcome to the written word. Thank you very much for doing this.
Thank you, Mick. Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
So tell us this, what are you reading or what are you listening to? Are you an Audible guy? Are you a book guy? What's the...
I'm definitely a tangible physical book person. I don't like, I'm old school. We're both Generation X. Um, and I don't know, there's something about the Kindles. I suppose if there was no other option, I would. And I have done once or twice out of necessity. But I try to get like a physical copy of a book if I'm going to read something. It's completely different when you're reading something like a Kindle type thing where it's on a tablet or worse yet, a phone. Um, for me, it gets very strainy very quickly, even if it's got that anti-glare thing on it. It just doesn't sit well with me. It's not the way a book was meant to be read. God damn it. So physical copies. To be fair, at this moment in time, as you know, shops aren't open. You have to send. You can send away for stuff online, I suppose, but I have an extensive library in my office downstairs, and I'm rereading a lot of the stuff that I've read before. And unsurprisingly, with me, it's a lot of strength and conditioning type stuff.
Yeah.
I'm rereading. There's a very good book called Super Training by a guy called Mel Siff, um, and it's widely regarded as the quintessential guide for an amalgamation of Eastern and Western periodization models for physical improvement for athletes, that you would use with athletes, and like a macro cycle, which is a year, a year long period of training that splits up into, mesocycles that are essentially quarterly breaks, and then maybe an Olympic cycle, which is four macro cycles, i.e., 4 years, between Olympic games. So that's what this guy does, and that's what he's done for many years. And it's a hell of a book.
Are
He's
you
worked with a lot
finding,
of the best Eastern European strength and conditioning coaches. It's fascinating if you're a if you're a strength and conditioning nerd and you like looking at all that type of stuff.
are you getting more of it the second time round? Is there things that are coming to light more?
Yeah.
Just
Well,
remembering.
as you may remember about me, my memory is quite photographic. So it's like I can't explain that. Well, I'm gonna attempt to. I enjoy reading something even when I know all the words. There's especially numbers based stuff. I like looking at. That's gonna sound strange. I like looking at the not prepared for something weird. I like looking at the numbers. If there's a particularly aesthetic number sequence which leads to an outstanding outcome, I like to look at the process over and over again. I like to look at it, how it plays out, and where it ends up.
So is
For
it
me, there's something just very nice about what way those numbers play out
in
and the
terms of
plan
the
behind
pattern
it.
of them?
Yeah, I like reading it. I like looking at it over and over again. Um, Even old training logs. I have training logs from the late 90s for myself. From when I was, in my late teens and early 20s. I have training logs. And I sometimes, I don't do it very often, but they're down in the office as well, among the library, in my handwriting from when I was a teenager. And it's logged every workout from when I was a teenager, and
Wow.
you can see the process. And sometimes I'll flick through it and remember, like literally look at a page and remember being in the gym that day, or maybe it was the house. Remember what the surrounding was like. Remember what the weather was like. Remember who all was in the room. So it doesn't take much stimulus for me to have a very complete memory of something. And in a way, it's like a photo album. It's like a 3D photo album. You go back and experience it again, which is, I understand how strange that's going to sound to people. Believe me, it isn't lost on me how odd that is. But nevertheless, there you go.
Fair play. So numbers and patterns are a big thing of yours. Do you think that's where
Yeah,
your strength lies?
yeah, yeah. It's kind of from the earliest age. I have noticed this about myself, or my brother Damien. You've met
Yeah.
him a number of times, in Santor, and he is older than me. He's 9 years older than me, which I like to point out to him on a regular basis. Um, he doesn't look 9 years older than me, though. To be fair, I hate him, but when I was a kid, you know those like puzzles where it's like a maze and you're trying to find your way out, like start finish type of thing. One day he put one in front of me, and it was the first time I'd ever seen one. I must have only been about 5, and I just seen the route out immediately, and put my finger on the start and went round without a break and went out. And he was like astounded at this, and he got my daddy over and he said, "Do that again." And I did it again like 3 or 4 times, and he started putting other ones in front of me, and I started doing those as well. So even though I'm kind of I'm socially high functioning in that I can, well, I can be as gregarious as the next guy in a social setting. I can try to be as good a crack as I can possibly be. Sometimes I fail, sometimes I succeed, like everybody else. But um, some of it is a learned front. You know, there's a lot of things going on in my head, which if I was acting it out as much as it's coming in, you know, I'm not sure I would be as popular. You know, socially speaking, growing up in like, you know, West Belfast, the Lower Falls, Divis in the 80s, you know, Devonshire and Divis and McDonald Street and all those places. Um, yeah, it was a rough setting. So you don't want to be coming off as some sort of weird savant. Um, Not that I believe I'm that, but there's definitely elements.
Yeah.
You know, there's elements of that in my thought process. And I suppose, you know, and yeah, is obsessive compulsive the right word? I become obsessional about things that I'm interested in. And early doors, that was like comic books and bodybuilding, believe it or not, because of my brother.
Yeah.
Martial arts as well, and like watching strong. I remember seeing an early strongman on TV. You remember, I'm sure you'll remember, John Paul Sigmarsson, the Icelandic Viking guy with the blonde hair, used to scream, "I am the Viking!" You know, like I was fascinated by him because he looked like He-Man, who was another like obsession of mine as a kid. And I suppose domestically and environmentally, I was looking for escape from what maybe consciously wasn't thinking this at the time, but retrospectively trying to analyze it, I suppose I was trying to look for escape in characters of mythical strength, you know, and that I'm trying to envisage myself as being strong enough to change my environment and to help with the living situation, you know, with my parents and things, that there somehow be somebody who was strong enough to change the circumstances that everybody was living in and that we were living in. That sounds odd, but as a kid, I focused heavily on superheroes.
Yeah.
You know, and characters of mythical strength, particularly transformative individuals who started off weak and became strong.
Yeah.
Like Bruce Banner becoming the Incredible Hulk, Peter Parker becoming Spider-Man was one of my favorites. Prince Adam and the He-Man. It was, you know, Steve Rogers was this wee small guy, and then he was Captain America. It's over and over again, really, this message of transformation. And I suppose that's where transformation first popped into my head.
So your body transformation program is now all over the world. We first met about 7 or 8
So
years.
I took it literally. And now we know where we call it the formative years.
Yeah.
You know?
So
it's interesting.
That started off, well, it probably started off before Centaur, which was the gym you had in town. I think when we first met, there was about less than 100 people had gone through it. You're now
I'd say so, yeah.
You're now into how many thousand?
It's approaching 9,000. Yeah. And I'll tell you, it could be more than that it could have been more than that because we're very selective with who we pick to become A12 coaches, and therefore there's a limited number of people in the world available to put people through the program, so to speak. So that's going to limit the numbers. However, you know, in 2021 and 2022, it's going to go up and up and up because it's gone online now. And even though our selection process is more rigorous, it's just being advertised much better now, and it's being presented much better. It's a much better product. So there's a higher volume of people coming through. So I envisage the day where there's a quality A12 coach, not encroaching on another A12 coach in spaced out locations everywhere, if that makes any sense.
And whereabouts on the planet are they now?
They're everywhere, to be fair. We'll say everywhere. Are they in Botswana? No, not yet. They are predominantly in the United States of America. We've got one in many states, including Alaska there for a while, which
Wow.
I'm still training that A12 coach actually online. She's doing great things with kettlebells at the minute, just in her own training, but that's besides the point. There's around 180, or there has been 180 locations globally. Most of them are in the United States. They're across Europe as well. Prague, Germany, all over the place. Greece, it's in Athens in Greece. All over Ireland, all over the UK, Australia. Wow. We've got guys everywhere. I think Africa is literally one of the last continents where we don't have Antarctica, which we'll be waiting maybe. The Inuit community are just ripe for the taking there. A naturally high body fat percentage because of living in Antarctica. No, only joking, but yeah, all over the world.
That's incredible, man. And how long has the program been going at the minute?
It's around, or if it's not over, 15 years. Yeah. Jared McManus, as you know very well, was the first. He was the very first, and it just snowballed from there locally. His story is remarkable, as you know. You told it.
Yeah, certainly.
Told it eloquently in a successful play, which I'm an honor. I am honored. I'm not a honor. That would be weird. I am honored to have been a part of. It's predominantly about the journey of me and Jared, and then Paddy Gall and the Commonwealth Games, and it's a hell of a story, and you told it really well. So
thank you very much. It's incredible to think that was about 15 years ago, and then I suppose the Amazing 12 was about 7 or 8 years ago. Is that correct?
Yes, the Amazing 12. So to save from confusion, a brief synopsis of the evolution of it. So when I first trained Jared, it didn't have a name because it wasn't even a business. I was a strength and conditioning coach, working predominantly with athletes and a select few members of the public for typical personal training goals as well, commercially speaking. But I was a qualified strength and conditioning specialist working with athletes, and that's what I wanted to do. I actually remember my mum, God rest her, who said to me, "Why don't you go into like commercial personal training as well?" And I was like, "Mum, it's not really my thing. Like, I want to work with athletes, this and that." As it turned out, I've taken the thought process around making elite athletes even better and scaled that to turn members of the general public into the highest performing versions of themselves as quickly as humanly possible. So it's like their Olympic Games, if you know what I mean. It's the 12 weeks is almost a peaking mesocycle, so to speak, to try and elicit as much change as humanly possible. You heard me talking earlier about mesocycles, macrocycles, Olympic cycles. So the same type of principles that help the best get better. And believe me, that's the hardest thing to do. Some people in the general population can be forgiven for thinking that if you've got somebody who's a prodigious talent already, that it's easy to make them better because they're already great. No. Oftentimes what a strength and conditioning coach is trying to do there is just not break them. I'm trying my best not to make you worse because you're already great. So to make them better is a hell of an achievement. And if you're able to do that with people like that, then it's even easier to do it with people who have a lot of progress left to make. If that makes any sense.
Yes, indeed.
It's like the closer you get to perfect, and nobody's going to be perfect, but you know what I mean? I'm speaking sort of, just so that you can understand. The closer you get to your potential, the slower the progress is to get that top, But if you're if your proximity to your ultimate potential is very distal or very distanced away from it, then you can make progress quicker.
Yeah.
So that's part of the reason, the control that I have over creating progress with people who are already very good is one of the secrets behind why I've been able to create almost unbelievable, shocking progress with the general public with the A12.
And it really is about that potential thing, isn't it? I mean, for some people, yeah, they want to look good or they want to build muscle or whatever else, but really it's about challenging yourself, reaching your own potential, and how seeing physical change will change you mentally. And do you think that's
tremendous.
the secret to it? It's really a
Absolutely. I
mental journey.
mean, well, that's the only reason why I put Jared through the program in the first place.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't to try and win the Body for Life competition, even though we did, which was amazing.
Yeah.
And that's actually what the program, or what the future of the program needed, as a catalyst to get a lot of eyes on it, was the actual competition success of me and Jared.
Yeah.
Was what grew the interest in me training people for 12 weeks. A lot, there was a good handful at the start were either completely for free or for very little money.
Yeah.
Most were for free, to be fair. And then I had a trophy case of results, and I was refining my process every time. And almost all, not quite all, but almost all of those early ones were coming to me for a mental transformation and an emotional transformation, rather than just a physical transformation, even though that's not what they said. That's what it was, really, reading between the lines, because they were people from similar backgrounds with similar issues to Jared. I should probably point out, if you're not familiar with his story, that he was a champion boxer, 3 times champion of Ireland, who grew up in the same sort of ghetto that I grew up in, and developed alcohol and substance abuse problems and a lot of the mental and emotional issues that went along with that. And this culminated in him being assaulted and hospitalized on the verge of paralysis on the same night that my father died, after he had helped me fix up my father's apartment for him coming home to spend his last few days. I thought it was going to be a few weeks. It actually ended up was only a few days. So look at how critical it was that we got it done while he was there as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I felt indebted to Jared, and I was, to be fair, I didn't just feel it. I was. I felt it because I was.
Yeah.
He didn't look at it that way, to be fair, but I felt it. That's the way I felt about it. And I came to him in the hospital and was like, right, we're going to change this. You are going to walk. I hadn't got a clue.
Yeah.
And neither did he, but he prayed that if he could walk again, he would turn it all around. He wouldn't drink. He wouldn't do drugs. And as you know, that is now 15 years ago, and he hasn't.
Yeah.
And fair play to him.
Yeah.
He went on to do great things himself in his own life. And this was the initial catalyst that started that. But, he had to keep that. One thing I want to say as well, especially when I'm talking to you, the man who told the story on stage. Yeah, I was the catalyst, but I didn't have anything to do with why he's still in the position where he is.
Yeah.
That he has to walk that day, one day at a time, on his own. I haven't been holding his hand for 15 years. He deserves a lot of credit for becoming the man who he is today. I am happy and so glad that I was part of the reason. I was the catalyst that pointed him in the right direction and helped him, as far as I could with what it was that I had to do. But he went on to, never to fall again, really,
Yeah.
which is remarkable.
And it's still within
Most
him.
people do
Yeah.
relapse, and he hasn't.
And he carries on being, if something happens in your life, you can guarantee the second he hears about it, he's the first person to call you. He's the first person to cover.
It's true. It's true. It's true. It's true. And do you want to know why that is as well? And he's also, we both know this, he's also quite stoic as well when bad things happen, because so many bad things have happened to him that he's emotionally numb to. I don't want to talk about the man behind this. I mean this is a compliment, by the way, if you hear this, but well, I don't actually mean this as a compliment, but I don't mean it as a detriment either. It's just an observation. He's had a lot of trauma in his life,
Yeah.
And so therefore, you know, he doesn't even mean it, but sometimes he can be very deadpan when it comes to anything that happens. If that makes any bad thing that happens. I remember one time, my dog that I'd had from when I was a teenager, it was 18 years old and it had died, right? And I think, where was it now? Jared was giving me and my mummy a lift in a car somewhere. He picked us up. And Mummy was awful sad that the dog had died. He was 18. It's more or less like a child. Do you know what I mean? And Jared, I don't know what he said, but it was really like, you live, you die, you know, blah, blah, blah. Sure, he's popped his clogs. It was just all like, you know, but you have to put that into perspective. I was like, Jared, can you be slightly more sensitive? But you got to put that into perspective with some of the things he's experienced.
Big time.
You know, a dog Dan is just a dog Dan. And in the subsequent years from that day to this, I've had things that have happened to me, including the death of both my parents, you know.
Yeah.
And not, it's still not a quarter of what's happened to him. And now, you know, I had 2 other dogs that died. And as much as it is sad to see them go, it's very just like, because you've been through worse.
Yeah.
And everything's about perspective. You know, some of the things you used to shed a tear at, you know, people's resolves get hardened over the course of their life relative to their experience. You know, but you should always remember that people's experiences are always relative.
Yeah.
You know, maybe somebody's never experienced any kind of loss, and like if a budgie dies, they're inconsolable.
Yeah.
And as much as that may seem irrational to somebody who's had a lot of things happen to them, you have to understand that, at least I try to remind myself to understand that, you know, everybody's lot is different.
Yeah, without a doubt. And
You
he
know?
literally, he was at the point of probably not going to be able to walk again.
Yeah.
You two got together over a period of time and had the most insane transformation physically, but also without doubt mentally. And from there, your program ended up down at Centaur. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, what you said earlier about the link between the body and the mind, I had seen it already in the 90s with a program called Body for Life.
Yep.
Which was huge in the States, enormous, right? It was nationwide in the late 90s, early noughties. And a guy called Bill Phillips owned a company called EAS, which is Engineered and Applied Sciences, I believe the acronym stood for. It was essentially a supplement company. And he owned a magazine called, he bought Muscle Media 2000 and changed it into Muscle Media. And it was essentially an advertisement for EAS supplements, but it was a great magazine. Unlike magazines around today, there was real good information in it, and there was real good experts, real good training knowledge in it. It was where Charles Poliquin first found fame, the late Charles Poliquin. It was where Pavel Satsalin first got his big break. A lot of these guys, and Bill Phillips himself, the magazine played a pivotal role in that. But Body for Life was something that I had seen and actually tried to enter in the late 90s, and I couldn't do it because I wasn't a resident of the United States of America, sir. And I was like, right, okay, fair enough. I was really kicking myself because in the magazine, these guys were winning. Well, it was such a beautiful story. They selected like 10 people from tens of thousands who entered it all across America. And instead of, it was supposed to pick one champion to win a Lamborghini Diablo and all this like money and you know, lifetime supply of supplements and all this. And I ended up, when they did the documentary on the 10 finalists, all their personal journeys were so moving, some more so even than others, that Bill Phillips was like in the documentary Body of Work about the inaugural Body for Life challenge in 1997. He was just like, right, they're all champions. He sold a Lamborghini Diablo and bought 10 Corvettes and made them all champions and give them all money, split the prize money between the 10 of them. It was like such a cinematic American dream moment. It was actually in the cinema, this thing, in the States. Don't know if it came out over here. Don't think so. And that made a big impact on me as an 18-year-old. I'm looking at it and going, but I seen the link between the body changing and the mind and the emotions changing. And if you think about it, it makes perfect sense, because a psychiatrist can tell you a million things, and that's great. And I encourage people to, I'm not in any way downplaying that, but there's something different with the quantifiable nature of physical improvement is undeniable. I can tell you, Michael, you handled that situation a lot better than you normally do, and well done to you. And I think you're improving. Do you not feel like you're improving? Oh yeah, I feel like I'm improving. But when you improve your body, it's undeniable. 1 + 1 will always equal 2, regardless of how you feel about it, which is the beauty of maths. So in many ways, self-confidence is a mathematics equation, right?
Yeah.
In a way, like the whole existence reality is mathematics, right? It's all maths, right? And as unemotional as that may seem, it's actually not. It's only, art and science are only separated because we separate them. The lines get blurrier the closer you look. So there's an art to science and there's a science to art, and there's definitely, there's science fiction is really only the science that we don't understand yet, and reality is the reality that we accept because our eyes are presented with it. But self-confidence can be a mathematical equation if you apply yourself to a concurrent training program and diet based on numbers, right? Both in your diet and in your training, to improve your body, to bring it back to its state of natural function. Because Western society has us looking and feeling like we weren't supposed to. Everything about our lives, almost everything, is artificial. Okay. So therefore, it shouldn't be surprising that the physical state that we all, even me to a certain extent, absolutely. I mean, I'm training in the gym and I'm doing this and doing that, but I can guarantee you, if you put me on a desert island and said, right, you've got to hunt for your food, you're not going to be eating 6 times a day, following a bodybuilding diet. You're not going to be doing it. I'm going to change.
Yeah.
My body fat's going to get lower. I'm going to get sharper. My brain, my eyesight's going to get better at nighttime. All these things are going to start to change. The way the cold affects me is going to change, right? We live in a comfortable world. Even people who train and do, tough sports and things like that, that's probably the closest you're going to get to the natural human state, but it's even still a ways short. But if you think about how far from natural, and some of it's good, because we wouldn't be living to 90 and 100 years old without it. As much as Western society contributes to our demise, if we abuse it, it can also definitely contribute to our longevity and the quality of our life. So it's about getting that adult perspective on the decisions that you make in relation to how you conduct yourself in life, both in terms of your activity levels, your diet, and your lifestyle. A lot of us get on like giant 8-year-olds, me included, when it comes to food selection sometimes. And if those options weren't there, you just wouldn't take it, But self-confidence goes up in direct proportion to physical capacity, and it's just undeniable. No matter who you are, right? You're in a better place if you're a physically stronger person. No matter where you are, you're in a better position if you're a physically stronger person relative to who you would be if you were weaker in that same situation. Whether that situation is making a cup of tea or, fighting a group of assailants who are trying to kill you, you're always in an easier and better position if you're a physically stronger, fitter, leaner, more muscular person. And self-efficacy seems to go up in direct 1-for-1 proportion to an improved physicality. It seems to be just literally a direct correlation.
Yeah.
And you also, it's not even just that. It's not even just how you perceive yourself. It's how others start looking at you. And as bad as it may be, you know, maybe you shouldn't look at people differently because they're big and muscular or because they look fitter. It's hardwired into our DNA to do so.
Yeah.
There's been hundreds of thousands of years of evolution, a couple of 100,000 years of evolution with Homo sapiens alone. And, you know, you can take it right back to crustaceans, you know, where natural selection has favored the strong, you know. Now, that's not to say anybody is worth any more as a human being because their bench press is greater, but we inadvertently are more respectful relative to who the human being is to somebody who has more physical presence. It just, and therefore, you know, people even treating you, if it's 10% different, you don't have to walk into a room like Mike Tyson where everybody gets shivers up their spine and like, whoa, you actually feel like, as one UFC fighter, a UFC fighter in his own right, described it, it feels like sitting beside a lion. That's what he said. I remember hearing that on Joe Rogan, a guy called Kevin Nee, who's a great UFC fighter in his own right, says he was sitting beside Tyson and he felt nervous. He felt like he was sitting beside a lion. It felt like he was sitting beside something that was not human.
Yeah.
You know, it's just this aura of he could tear your head off even if he, you know, anytime he wants to, because he probably could.
Yeah.
You know, but even if you shine 10% brighter in a room, you feel it.
Yeah.
We're hardwired to feel it. And then that changes what way you feel about you. And even besides what way others feel. And even besides what way you feel when you look in the mirror. On a cognitive, on a cellular level, your head is clearer. It literally is. Blood flow improves, right? Cognition improves. You know, when you take all the things that were bad out of your life, you start seeing some of the stuff that you were missing. There's a whole, it's a 360-degree quagmire. Just this massive series of interventions that happen like a domino effect, independent of your even control or desire for it to happen. As soon as you set the motion, the wheels in motion of physical improvement, and then obviously the magnitude of physical improvement and the rate or the accelerated rate of physical improvement is also directly proportional to the magnitude of how much you're feeling all these things. So if I make you 10% better, you might feel 1% better, type of thing.
Yeah.
You know?
You see the period of 12 weeks, apart from being able to physically see and measure the difference, do you think it's also having that date or deadline of going, okay, I'm going to take myself from point A and see how far I can get from point B, and no matter what happens to you in the subsequent years, you can still say to yourself, well, look, I took this time period and made an improvement, so therefore I can do it again.
100%. There's a lot in there that you just said that could be unpacked. For a start, let me say something that's somewhat controversial, right? Even if it's the only 12 weeks of your life that you're in shape, you owe it to yourself to do it, right?
Yep.
And it never is if you do it right, by the way, because you've always got the ability, as you said, to know now going forward what it is that you need to do to be in shape. And the cool part about physiology and about how humans acquire and retain physical qualities, let's say, or physical capacities, it's a lot harder to build a house than it is to keep it clean.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. So going from zero to, you know, fitness model is more effort, a lot more effort than is required, you know, maintaining 90% of fitness model 100% of the time.
Yeah.
With the option to increase that 10% for special occasions if you should so need or desire to, because you've got the knowledge from a dietary perspective, probably more so than training at that stage, because you're still training to maintain that 90, but you're training less. Like if something takes 5 days a week for an hour a day to build, you can easily maintain it for 30 minutes 3 times a week if you do it, if you make those 30 minutes count.
Yeah.
3 times a week. And there's nobody on the face of the planet who, if you're telling me you can't do that, what you're really telling me is you won't do that.
Yeah.
30 minutes 3 times a week, 35 minutes, it's not a lot, So yes, that finite period is good. But let's say you're a person who, only does that for 12 weeks. That's something that you're going to look back on and say, this is what I did do, right? You will never not be better for doing it.
Yeah.
And you'll never not be able to do it for only 12 weeks. Anybody can do anything for 12 weeks, especially something as scalable as a well-designed training program. Like the A12 is based on my thought process for what optimal programming looks like. And that's dramatically different than what most people think like in terms of how to make optimal physical progress. I talk about expanding the comfort zone. So as to put what was once hard inside what is now easy, so that you're never actually training in a state that could be considered a threat state to your central nervous system. And thus your central nervous system becomes more facilitative to allowing progress to continue, as opposed to being a debilitative force, viewing your physical activity as a threat, which is what most people end up achieving when they go into the gym.
Yeah.
They push themselves too hard. They do things that elicit a fight or flight response from the body's various systems. And this exhausts the central nervous system over a relatively short period of time, and progress will be inhibited initially. Well, it'll be accelerated initially because the body does react to that with a whoa, we've got to do something here. But pretty quickly it realizes that it's not life or death. And I theorize that one of the reasons for neural burnout, when people are training to failure habitually over even a moderate period of time, which can be anything, unless you're a beginner, a total beginner, anything over 6 weeks, even 4 weeks, sometimes less. If you're advanced, maybe you can't even do limit type stuff for 2 weeks,
right?
Especially if you're drug free. If you're drug free and you're advanced, you can't even smell, limit training for more than a couple of weeks before your central nervous system just goes, nope,
right, okay,
and shuts you down. And one of my theories behind it is that that your central nervous system senses the systematic stress and damage that you're causing to yourself in terms of free radicals, in terms of the adrenal system being hyperstimulated, and the immune system being inhibited after a while, and just shuts you down. It'll not become facilitative to that. So you have to organize your training in such a way that it builds trust from this internal bouncer, so to speak, so that he will let you in. Your name's down, you're coming in, as opposed to, whoa, you're trouble, and I'm putting the brakes on this,
And is that what happens? Most people, they sign up to a gym, have all the best intentions, go in, probably burn out, and then, a model for a lot of gyms is, well, we've got your year membership, so if you don't turn up, happy days. It's
unfortunately,
without being negative, it's almost in their interest for you to come in, burn out, and go away again.
Listen, you've hit the nail on the head precisely. I couldn't have said it better myself. Unfortunately, the big sort of gym chain PLC type business model, as opposed to the small privately owned coaching facility, so to speak, or privately owned studio/gym, they look the same externally, but underneath the hood, so to speak, they're running very differently. The big gym chain PLC type business model relies almost exclusively on you signing up to a contract, paying by direct debit, coming out of your bank account, whether you want it to or not, because you've signed up to it, and then you not coming. Like they would much, because there's think about it, right? The more people they have paying them, the more money they're making, but they will always have a finite amount of space and always have a finite amount of hours in a day to be open. So those things don't match after a while, you know.
Yeah.
And also when a gym even approaches 70% capacity, it starts becoming very uncomfortable for its members to train in. So long before you even get to 100% capacity, they want you to not be there. You know,
Yeah.
how many times you've even experienced it yourself? The gym's packed tonight. I couldn't get on a piece of equipment. I couldn't get on. I had to change the whole routine because I just couldn't get on. And this guy was doing this, and so was on his phone. And, you know, that's another thing about the big sort of PLC environment. Everybody is kind of in this bubble of anti-community sort of, it's this like unwritten agreement among strangers to remain strangers, and just nobody talks to each other, and they just carry on. Whereas if you're in an earthier sort of facility the way Centaur was, and there's many other gyms like that in Belfast and around the world at the minute, and I encourage you to support those coaches, because when all this is over with the COVID, you're going to need them to be there still.
Yeah.
But you don't want the big the PLCs are currently earning money from you still, even if they're closed. Probably, I don't know what way that's working, but it wouldn't surprise me if they were still taking money out of people's bank account, even when they can't train.
Yeah.
You know, I probably not, but I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me. However, you know, your local coaches are going to go out of business if you don't support them. So continue to train with them online. Let them support you. It's going to be a damn sight better than sitting about the house, you know, by themselves. And yes, that's what sells bodybuilding magazines as well. You know, other than things like Muscle Media, which was Bill Phillips' magazine, other than things like that, there's very little good training magazines out there.
Yeah.
They're essentially supplement company adverts from start to finish nowadays. In particular, it was always the way, but nowadays it's so overt, it's like almost preposterous. It's repulsive, I would say. Almost, it's like every third page is an advert, and maybe the advert is 10 pages, and you're flicking through this, and then it's a training program by some guy who's on a copious amount of anabolic steroids, who's probably not even really doing that training program. And if he is, that's certainly not the thing that's responsible for his success to the magnitude that it's at. And you've got people who are signing up to gyms with coaches that don't care or aren't in a position knowledge-wise to progress them. And a lot of the coaches are going by what they're reading online or in these magazines, and they're putting out these routines that are overly aggressive to the central nervous system that will elicit progress in a beginner, because anything does, actually, especially an aggressive program for a few weeks, 4 weeks, maybe 6 weeks max, and then the central nervous system starts to burn out. So it's definitely a contributory factor, if I spot that out correctly, or correctly even. But it's also that social thing. I mean, if you're going there and you're the type of person that doesn't really want to be there anyway, and then you arrive, and it's a combination of, you know, people that don't want to look like you, and, you know, Instagram influencer types who haven't got a hair out of place and are taking 1,000 selfies in between sets. It's not exactly the most inspiring environment in the world to keep you going.
Yeah.
You know? And it's like, there's room for people to do stuff like that, but, you know, you have to be aware of the influence that you're having on people. And there's a real lack of quality, progressible programming knowledge out there at the minute. And I think that's one of the main reasons why people quit, because the program they're doing is essentially born to fail after a number of weeks. You know, a lower finite number than you would imagine.
Yeah.
You know,
so what does this year hold for you? Obviously, gyms are closed. You have your A12. Presumably, it's being done online by its coaches, or what's the model?
Yeah. Well, at the minute, no. At the minute, well, it used to be called the 12-week physique, as you remember, right? Yeah. It got named that after a number of those people ended up, I was training for free, went online and blah, blah, blah. Then when that was going for, almost 10 years, it started to get more and more attention from the world. So we turned it into a certification.
Yeah.
And the certification was supposed to be called the Amazing 12, but now it's interchangeable. So legally speaking, you can call either the Paul Mcilroy's 12-week physique or the Amazing 12.
Yeah.
So the Amazing 12 is what's predominant now. It's the same program. It's a better program than ever. And the A12 coaches are running it in accordance to what the COVID rules are like in their location at the minute.
Yeah.
They're still running it in person. There's now 3 different strands to the program.
Okay.
2 that are out currently and 1 which is in the making. And that one, which will be out soon, will be COVID proof and it will be online and it will require no equipment. And it is a serious heavyweight, heavy hitter strength program, but yet no weights, like no free weights.
Yep.
There's never been, and I've read them all. I've read all the best bodyweight strength programs out there in book form and all these different things. And I've seen a lot of the stronger calisthenic based individuals in the world as well, and coaches and things. And I can say with confidence, with certainty, that there has been nothing like this in terms of its ability to build bone crunching strength, muscle, and cardiovascular fitness with zero equipment.
Wow.
Like proper strength. We're not talking doing 1 million push-ups. This isn't going to be a typical, infomercial, put the DVD in and bounce about and do 1 million reps and get your heart rate up high. There's elements of that in it, but you're going to get seriously strong with the intelligent manipulation of body weight.
Okay.
So that it represents a tougher effort. This is a proper bodybuilding, strong man, strong woman type training that's scalable to 80-year-old grandmothers all the way up to Olympians and world's strongest man competitors with just body weight and household environment.
Okay.
So this is revolutionary and this is coming soon. Currently, A12 coaches are doing either the A12 Classic or the A12 Express, which is a new program just launched, which is 35 minutes 3 times a week. And it is the heaviest hitting sprint, pound for pound routine, body transformation routine out there. The results are great, but the time commitment is really low. So it's taken that A12 quality, but it's cut the time. It's cut the time dramatically.
So the A12 would have been an hour a day, 5 days a week.
5 days a week. Okay, so 5 hours a week, and this is 1 hour and 45 minutes a week.
Wow. Okay.
So, right now, obviously, the results of the A12. If you haven't seen them, go on the website and have a look at them.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm not just saying this because it's my program. I'll take the Pepsi challenge versus any body transformation program on the face of this.
Yeah.
Son bitch,
Yeah.
The results are unequaled, right? So the A12 Express won't get the same level of absolute result as the A12 Classic, but it's going to get the closest result possible to that.
Yeah.
When you consider how small the time investment is, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
It's like this is the Usain Bolt to, the ultra marathon world record that is the A12 Classic, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
you can't sprint the marathon. So the A12, the programming for the A12 Express is designed. It gets a bigger result than the Classic in an hour and 45 minutes. If we use the A12 Classic programming for an hour and 45 minutes a week, it wouldn't get the same result as the Express is getting.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you can't
do it the other way.
You can't do it the other way because you can't sprint the marathon. It's paced totally differently.
Yeah.
But it's paced to get the highest percentage of the A12 Classic result that is possible with the lowest amount of time investment. And that's the best way I can describe it.
Yeah.
So if you're the type of person who either doesn't want to train for an hour a day, 5 days a week, or logistically can't.
Yeah.
Not going to miss you anymore because we've got this. And the result you'll get will be better than any other 5 or 6 or 7 or 4 day a week program out there.
Yeah.
Even though it's only 3 days, because it's that A12 quality.
Yeah.
You know, only the A12 itself can compete with the A12, in my opinion, when it comes, and the opinion of, you know, most people now at this stage of the game, when it comes to body transformations naturally in 12 weeks, you know. So the COVID rules are different in different states in America and different countries across Europe. There's some people are wide open for business. We have A12 coaches now in certain states in America who have a full wave of like 20 or 30 people going through the A12 as we speak. You know, there's some places in Europe that are almost totally open as well, so they're also doing A12 body transformations. And then there's A12 coaches in Ireland and the UK and certain states in America who as yet can't.
Yeah.
But they're building their waiting lists and they're building their pre-sales.
Yeah.
And they've got they're you know they're raking in thousands upon thousands in pre-sales for whenever you know the various lockdown rules do eventually, you know. But by that time the A12 at home will be ready to drop and nobody will have to worry about whatever COVID wants to do.
Yeah.
You know, if you're a fit pro or you're a person out there that wants to transform their body, the A12 at home is coming. It's coming for you.
Brilliant. And when do you think that's going to be happening?
Well, the program itself, from my perspective, as the actual designer of the maths behind it and the creator of the instruction, if that makes any sense, because the coaches are going to have to learn how to implement this. It's completely different. It's completely different than I anticipate a very similar result, right?
Yeah.
But the means is completely different. And even the obviously the exercises are different because you're not using barbells and dumbbells at all, or kettlebells at all. But even the numbers, you could potentially expect the programmatic design behind it to be similar. It's not. Even the numbers are totally different. The format is totally different. So there'll be a learning curve for the coaches.
Yeah.
Learn how to implement the program. All our educational materials are online. For the classic, there's currently over 200 videos. So when you sign up to become an A12 coach, there's an extensive selection process, and we weed out the individuals who maybe aren't suitable. Okay. And that's not necessarily people who don't have numerous letters after their name. That's great. And we love getting people like that. But we've also seen great success from coaches who are neophyte in the industry.
Yeah.
But there's something about them. When they finally get to the interview process like this, there'll be a Zoom interview process in their future once they get through the various stages of filtration and selection. If they find themselves, even if they don't get in after the interview stage, I can tell you, you're better than most if you got an interview. That's how selective this is. So it's almost like getting to the Olympics and not winning a medal. Doesn't matter. You've already shown how good you are just to be in the running.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you are selected, and as you know, not everybody is, you'll go into a study area where you'll see professionally shot HD style videos of me in a classroom lecture type setting, teaching you everything that there is to know about how to implement the A12 program, and also me in gym demonstration, going through everything. There's over 200 videos. Some of them are 90 seconds long, some of them are 17 minutes long.
Yeah.
Right. So think about how much actual study time there is. Plus there's a textbook worth of written content and over 1,000 instructional images. So these guys, we're going to be doing something similar for the A12 at home, is my point.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to relearn and repass some of this, even when it is, because it's very different. The Express, there wasn't as much added because a lot of the exercises are still the same.
Yeah.
But the program's different, you know. But the artificial intelligence version of me, which is the A12 workout generator, I should probably tell you what that is.
Yeah.
You what? you can't just squeeze AI past me and not
That's
explain
it.
something. So it used to be me physically teaching people online, or sorry, in person at live events, and then you go away with a textbook. So it's still that, but the textbook's online, and me teaching you is online 24/7. So 36 hours of live teaching has been compressed into probably even longer than that. Actually, not compressed, extended into longer than that in terms of these 200 odd videos of education.
Yeah.
So you come in online and you learn all this online, and when you're ready, when you feel you're ready, you take a 3-hour exam,
right,
which is online. Okay, multiple choice questions. 3 hours is generous, I feel. If you feel that, you get a free reset. If you feel that, you have to pay to reset. I think that's fair. But you can study for up to 3 months. There's some people pass it in a week. I'd say about 3 to 4 weeks is probably the average before people are ready to take the test.
Yeah.
A time like lockdown is actually perfect because you've got, you're probably not working as much as you were, and you've got more free time to study in the house. It's perfect. You'll come out the gates with a thermonuclear weapon to hit the fitness industry with, right? So now is actually a perfect time to become certified. And when you do, you get access to the A12 workout generator, which is an artificial intelligence version of my own decision-making process as it applies specifically to the Amazing 12 program. So what's that? Right. Well, so
it's an AI
available.
it's,
yes, right. And I had a few HAL moments in the construction of it with the computer programmers that we had from America. These top guys, top computer programmers from America. Shout out to the Ramin machine. If you see this, a guy called Ramin was key in helping put my brain in this box. My brain only as it applies specifically to the decisions I make in the A12. So right. Picture every possible proliferation of a human being. Picture every possible outcome that could happen on every exercise, on every one of the days throughout the 60 sessions of the 12-week training process that is the A12 program. And picture a dynamic answer in your hand on your mobile phone as they do it, and you type the information in. I answer you. Right? So that's what it is. It's never been done before in the fitness industry. There is other industries that have similar things, but not the fitness industry. And it is actually it's a global first in the fitness industry. And it took a lot of investment to make, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
But the A12 has been this has been a plan to go this route from day one, to be fair. Yeah. And I knew we weren't going to have the means to do this right out the gate. Okay, so a lot of the live certs were very successful, and from a business perspective, as you know, we did very, very well. And that was essentially to be reinvested to create something like this, so that now the potential is limitless. But yes, there was a serious amount of financial investment, but there was an even bigger amount of time investment and expertise investment in this. And it's a bit of a double-edged sword, because to get personal for a second, it took about 2 years to develop, right? We had planned it, by the way. See all the stuff you see on notice boards and the minutes of the meeting. We allocate 6 months to this. Listen, the best laid plans of Mason men often fall by the wayside, don't they?
Yeah, indeed.
There's a good book.
Yeah.
And GCSE English. Anyway, we did of Mason men for GCSE English. I remember it. So anyway, remember everything. It's difficult. So yeah, this was difficult to do, and it took over 2 years, or around 2 years. And unfortunately, this coincided with me spending less time with my mother, and what turned out to be the last year of her life. And I tell you the truth, when the technology was first developed, we were sitting looking, and all our extended team in America, and the sister companies that support us and the different things, were all really proud of what they had accomplished and what have you. And I was very satisfied with it too. I try not to use the word pride, because I think it goes down has a tendency to go down the wrong road, you know. But I was very satisfied with the work. I was also very angry at it, if that makes any sense. I was like,
Yeah.
I resented the creation of something that is currently helping to change thousands of lives the world over. And that's what makes it worth it. That's what makes it worth it, because I know that it's not just, it's transforming the lives of the coaches financially. It's helping them live their dreams really quickly. And it's transforming the lives of their clients. It's given Jared McManus's experience to the world. It's given that gift to the world, right? Something that was only ever meant initially to help save the life of a friend, one person who helped make the final few days of my father's life better.
Yeah.
That was the only, he was going to be the first and the last person I ever transformed. And then more people started coming to me because they seen the change in him.
Yeah.
And they wanted that. And then we put those results online, and people just wanted it aesthetically. But as a result, they found that it spilled over into their life in strange and unexpected ways.
Yeah.
And now that's happening all over the world. And again, it happened, the creation of this new thing, this new revolutionary piece of technology, which will enable limitless amounts of people to now experience this transformative change, again, came during a time of great personal loss.
Yeah.
Isn't it strange?
Bizarre. It's bizarre.
Isn't it strange? You know, so I don't know, but I've moved past that now.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's been doing its thing now since then for, about 18 months probably.
Right.
And it's already doing great things. And, you know, when you receive a letter, an email, a letter, who sends letters anymore? But, you know, a digital letter, an email, from somebody who you will never meet, who thanks you for making the program, you know, and they're in America somewhere. And obviously the coach was the catalyst. And that's one of the beautiful things about being an A12 coach. You don't have to have created this program or built it to this point to benefit from the great joy that it brings to people. When you become, because you are the person who is with them every day, you are the person who learned how to implement this, and you are the person who is implementing my digital instructions, so to speak. So you are the vehicle of change in that person's life. And let me tell you, it doesn't get much more satisfying, you know, as jobs go, as perks go, to be able to see. It's not something that I have to say, it's not something that I naturally tended towards, because, you know, I came in to my adult life with ambitions, selfish ambitions, to be a professional athlete, a professional boxer, actually, was what I wanted to be. And everything was about me. Everything was about me, you know. And if anybody didn't get that, you know, I was being a bit grumpy because I was trying to make a weight, or because I was stressed out about it, you know, this or that, then they just had to get in line, because, you know, your trivial, your mere mortal trivial problems don't, you know, this like early 20s hubris of somebody who's hyper athletic and has all these like grandiose dreams of what he's going to do with it. And then even when I became a strength and conditioning coach, it was about, right, well, I want to help the best be better and this and that. So this has been a transformative process for me too. And from the very first person, which was Jared, something opened up inside my heart as well. And I was like, whoa, this is better.
Yeah.
This is better than, you know, a maturity kicked in, where I looked at my younger self, which was only 12 weeks younger at that point.
Yeah.
And was like, you know, that's not the right way to think. And you that's not you anymore, in terms of what way you're thinking about that. And now, 15 years down the line, I can't even barely recognize, the self-centered athlete who wanted to conquer the world at his feet. You know, there's elements of that are still very useful to me today.
Yeah.
But we must understand that even regardless of if you come from a theological or religious belief perspective, or you become from a secular belief perspective, it still doesn't change the fact that you must realize that for one reason or another, a lot of the talents and abilities that you have, largely you had nothing to do with.
Yeah.
You either believe they were gifted to you,
yeah,
by one means or another,
yeah,
whether that's inherited, biological, evolutionary, or whether that was some sort of celestial, divine bestowing of gifts, or whether or not that was a combination of the two.
yeah,
Like a creator who put the evolutionary process in place that you would somehow be gifted these things, something like that. I don't know.
yeah,
Regardless of what the vehicle is for you possessing whatever it is you have, you had nothing to do with putting it there. So there's only so big for your boots that you should allow yourself to ever get.
yeah.
There's only so much kudos you should throw at your feet. Which is why I try even not to say things like, I'm proud of you, son.
Yeah.
Who am I to be proud of him? I'm very happy and I'm very satisfied with the fact that you showed character in doing X, Y, Z. And that's going to benefit you for the rest of your life. And you should be thankful that you've learned this lesson, and that you were born with this gift or that gift, so that you've had the opportunity to work that hard on it.
Yeah.
It's like, if you have a gift and you worked hard and something came of it, that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
That's what you're supposed to do. Don't throw too many flowers at your feet, because what's the opposite of that? Wasting. It's like, yeah. So, you know what I mean? So,
So if the program's 15 years old, the A12 was about 8 year old. Who knows where it's going to be in 4 or 5 years' time with all these other things coming out, and how many lives it's going to change. But I suppose it's that thing of, once you put it out there into whatever way you want to see it, the universe, the world, energy, frequency, it'll take on a life of its own and do its thing.
Yep, 100%, and that's the goal. It's always been the goal. There's quite a cheesy mission statement, a kind of a company ethos that we have, which is change the world one body at a time. Now, part of the McDonald's treat in me cringes every time I hear that, right? Because where we grew up, right? You grew up in North Belfast, I grew up in West Belfast. It's similar but different, but more similar than different, way more similar than different. And at the same, to be fair, very similar with Easton as well.
Yeah.
In many ways, you don't think certain ways, you don't say certain things, you don't do certain things. We grew up with that, and that kind of socialization makes its way into your DNA and never leaves. But the fact of the matter is, that is our goal, and that is what we have been doing. That's exactly what it started in Belfast.
Yeah.
Hundreds of people from here. It became, as you know, a bit of a cult legend in Belfast. Actually, quite a mainstream legend. In Belfast, I actually remember one of my, you know, Marty Donnelly, who worked in Centaur.
Yeah.
Martial arts, multiple martial arts black belt. Right? He was doing a level 3 personal training accreditation in Biffy.
Yep.
Right now, everybody outside of Belfast doesn't know what we're talking about. The Belfast Institute for Further and Higher Education, right? A college, yeah. And one day, he sent me a text and says, "You're the subject of the lecture." I was like, "What?" He says, yes, it's called Paul Mcilroy and the 12-week body transformation explosion in Belfast. Right? Now, this was many, many years, like the A12 had went international at this point.
Yeah.
This is like the mid-20 teens, maybe 2015, 2016 or something this happened.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just about what we had done. It was about what I had started. And as you know yourself from living in Belfast, what subsequently happened to the fitness industry,
Yeah.
where everybody was doing body transformations.
Yeah.
Everybody was 12-week this.
Yeah. Posters, flyers, billboards.
You know, and the funny thing is, and this is the truth, the more people who did body transformations, the more people who did the A12. It was like our numbers went up.
Yeah.
There was a real purple period, excuse me, where lots of other coaches were doing 12-week transformations. But because the A12 was the market leader,
yeah,
by far, because the results were head and shoulders above everything else, and we were there first for a long time, essentially all they were doing was our marketing for us, if that makes any sense. And getting people's interest in that, and then they see, you know, my website, or they see the A12 and blah, blah, blah. They do a comparison. It doesn't take a genius to work out what happens next. So it's strange that, but it's been going on for a long time. I envisage it's already happening. As you say, it's actually been international 7 years now. This is the start of the 7th year. And I'm already seeing certain coaches. There's a coach in Louisiana, a lady who has made over $500,000 she made that in about 5 years, I think, if I'm quoting correctly.
That's insane.
That is insane. From one program, and that's not even including any peripheral earnings that would come off the back of that. Like, this person graduated the A12, now they're doing my kettlebell class, or now they're a regular member of the gym, or now they're doing this. That's just A12 sales. Right? So you best believe if anybody else does whatever in her community, it's gonna just funnel everything towards her, because she has become the matriarch.
Yeah.
The way I was sort of a patriarch of body transformations at one point many years ago, in Belfast. Haven't done it for a long time, as you know, but it's went globally now, so don't need to. And so what happened in Belfast, I envisage happening throughout all these locations eventually. And yes, the more the merrier. The more lives transformed, the better. Yeah. When the A12 gets bigger, the rising tide raises all ships. And if smaller, less successful people trying to do body transformations or kettlebell classes or whatever, it feeds them too. And that's still more people doing positive things.
Yeah.
So whether it's directly the A12 program or, synergistically coming from the A12 as a result of trying to compete with it or this or that, it's still positivity. It's still a proliferation of positivity in the community, whether that's an osmosis based thing or a direct result.
Well, it was certainly for me, not just in terms of training, but wanting to tell that story of you and Jared. I never set out to be a writer. I thought, right, I need to get this story on stage, but I couldn't afford a writer. And because I was doing the program, I went, sure, I'll have a go at it myself, and then I'll give it to somebody else to fix. And I've written 4 or 5 different plays now. It certainly indirectly put me on a different path. It's something I thought I would never do, which is bizarre. Yeah. I could write my name. I certainly didn't have any interest in English or anything from a background, but after writing that, in fact, just before it was due to be staged, I sent a section of the script to the Seamus Heaney Centre in Queen's University and got in to do a master's in script writing. I had 4 GCSEs to my name. We're like, look, we don't usually let people in who don't have a 2-1 or a first.
Wow.
It's bizarre, like
Here,
bizarre.
can I tell you something, Mick? And this is the truth. This is probably a bad thing, right? But see, throughout all the time of me knowing you and knowing the play and this and that,
Yeah.
I just assumed that was something that you do. I thought you were a playwright.
Not at all. I didn't.
Wow, really? That was your
worked,
first?
I worked backstage with theatre. I was a technical manager for a council at the time, so I had 2 or 3 different theatres I was running technically. That was the first time ever trying to. In fact, the last thing I had probably
Wow, what a
written
debut.
creatively was a GCSE English. So it went from writing that to then I spent a year doing the masters. So I was writing stuff every week. And I've now had a couple of different plays on, a couple of different readings, made a short film there or a medium length film
Wow.
September last year. And I'm in the process of writing another one. So
Wow.
it's a really strange thing that I would have never even had the confidence to put up a blank sheet of paper and try and write on it. Only I was going through that training process and suddenly going, well, actually, I'm going to give it. What's the worst that can happen is it can fail. Big deal. It's better than not trying at all. So that's how that came about. Yeah.
I really love the fact that you fast tracked straight to a master's. That's amazing to me.
Yeah, bonkers.
Fair play, tell you like.
It took a lot of faith in the head tutor, but he'd said, okay, show us a bit of this, give us 10 or 12 pages of something else, which I did. I knocked it out and I went, yeah. And they actually said, look, you might want to put this off for a year, to go. And obviously it meant, leaving my job, selling my car, being broke, moving back. It was a big jump to say, well, look, why don't you wait for a year? This course is starting in 5 weeks. And I just went, no, if I wait a year, I'll convince myself in that year not to do it and need to do it right now. So I just packed everything and went for it.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So
I mean, when you know, you have to back it. There comes a point, and well, I'm sure you can relate because you've just conveyed it, but to be truly successful or to be significantly successful in anything, there always comes at least one point, and in my experience, it's usually several points where there's a crossroads, and you either back yourself or you don't.
Yeah,
and it almost always invariably finds itself in a scenario where significant individuals in your life are urging you to play it safer than what you're going to have to do if you're going to sell out the really all your energy towards something. It's not always the right decision, but I'll tell you this: you're never going to find the right one if you keep trying to wait on the perfect one.
Yeah. Without a doubt,
the perfect scenario is never going to present itself. Scenarios are going to present themselves, and you're going to have to make the choice of whether or not it's worth committing all that you have to make it as perfect as possible.
Yeah. And I suppose
it's
natural for those closest to you, your nearest and dearest, to
100%. Yeah.
They kind of maybe go, are you sure with this, whatever else? But a lot of that can be is because, and not necessarily all the time, but sometimes it's because they have come to that crossroads and not done it in their own lives. And they're trying to stop you from doing what you want to do, but it allows them to tell themselves that they made the right choice, and by you maybe going for it is hard for them.
It justifies their choice in their own head, and they feel better emotionally about themselves. 100%. And sometimes it's because they took the risk and it didn't pay off.
Yeah.
But if you unpack, often, not always, but often, if you unpack that further, there's other reasons behind why they didn't succeed to the magnitude that they'd hoped, and it almost always invariably is revealed that they half-heartedly they had one foot in one world and one in the other, or there was a major setback and they lost heart.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not saying bang your head against the same wall for the rest of your life. It's if you're 5'6", predominantly slow twitch muscle fiber type, and you don't have great hand-eye coordination and you're heavily short-sighted, you're not going to play in the NBA.
Yeah.
Right. I need to get that out there too. Right. There's too many life wasting dream enablers out there. I don't care how many times you've read The Secret, right? I don't care how many lists you've made, right? There has to be an element of what you know you were born to be good at involved in this.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're barking up the wrong tree.
Yeah.
And that might not always be the thing you want to be good at as well.
Yeah.
So you have to be honest in your assessment of what you were born to be good at. You know, you don't want to be the business or sports equivalent of the delusional X Factor contestant. You know, you know. But at the same time, if there is something there, as Customato, Tyson's trainer, famously said, there needs to be a spark.
Yeah.
If there's no spark, you can't breathe life. But if there is a spark, you can fan it until it becomes a flame. And then you can feed that flame until it becomes a fire. And then it becomes a roaring blaze. You know, I believe that was his words.
It was indeed. It was indeed. And also, I think I managed to put that quote into the play. It was one of the.
Did you?
Yeah, did indeed. Did indeed.
Oh, there you go.
And on that note, Paul, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much for your time. It's been great to talk to you. I look forward to seeing the A12 Express and the Tun coming out.
Thank you, Mark.